The world is getting crazier and crazier by the second, to the point that I feel like we're living in the twilight zone. We are essentially being squeezed and pushed to our limits, but I'm starting to see how that's a good thing. Because what it's causing is it's causing people to wake up. People are finally starting to see through the illusion, through the lies, and they're starting to see the truth. And let me know down in the comments below if you felt this way, but here lately, I feel like my mind is going to explode because there are so many things that I know deep down in my soul, in my bones, to be true, that if I don't get on a rooftop and scream this stuff at the top of my lungs for everybody else to hear, I'm going to lose my mind. Because there are so many things that once you see, you simply cannot unsee. And I would say that it is the truth, because there are a lot of things we've been lied to about. But there are actually specific things throughout my life that have led to this, what I would call spiritual awakening. It has led to me seeing through the illusion, seeing through the lies, and being able to see the truth. Because what I think is happening to all of us is that we are so distracted. We are so inundated with all these things, all this toxicity, that it actually hinders our ability to think critically and to see the truth. But like I mentioned, there are a lot of things that have caused me to have this massive paradigm shift. And one of the first and foremost things is food, nutrition. Because I'm here to tell you that when I was eating a standard American diet and I was eating all the junk food, the 60,000 food products that are in most American grocery stores, I couldn't see the truth. It was blocking my ability to think clearly. And that is because our food is freaking toxic. All the stuff they put in food, I believe it's intentional. These are things that should have never gotten put into our food supply. Things that are actually made from petroleum, artificial ingredients, fillers, additives, preservatives, artificial food dyes, all these terrible things, they actually do affect your brain negatively. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the foods, especially hyper-processed foods and stuff like that, they are essentially neurotoxins because a lot of them contain very high levels of heavy metals, which are neurotoxins, PFAs, a lot of the artificial ingredients and stuff like that, they get FDA approval because there's a loophole, the GRAS loophole, which is generally recognized as safe, and that allows companies to actually self-regulate. They can essentially test their own food products, say that yes, it's safe, submit that to the FDA, and the FDA goes, boom, stamp of approval. You're good to go. And then we find out 15, 20 years later that those foods have been poisoning generations. And that is one big thing that I believe is happening, because when I switched the stuff that I was eating and I started focusing on real whole foods, I centered my diet around fatty red meats, animal products, and natural foods, my mind shifted completely. And one of the big reasons it shifted is because, number one, I realized that most of the stuff we've been told about food is an absolute lie, because all the stuff they say is not healthy is actually healthy, and all the stuff they say is healthy actually isn't the best for you. So that was the first thing. So I started thinking about that. I'm like, well, if they lied to us about that, what else have they lied to us about? Come to find out, it's a lot of stuff. So that opened my eyes up to a lot of things. And then on top of that, just my mind being more clear, the mental clarity and stuff that I gained from that, I can think clearly now. I can see the truth about a lot of things. And I would say that it essentially caused me to be an independent thinker. I can think about things critically. I can step back and take an objective look at things. And I don't have these deeply held ideologies like I used to. I am very open-minded to stuff. And I do attribute food and nutrition as a major factor in that. Something else that is almost equally as important as that is exercise, daily movement, getting outside. Because that's another big lie we've been told, is that don't go outside because the sun's bad for you. You'll get skin cancer and all these terrible things will happen. So they tell you to slather all this toxin-laden sunscreen on your skin, even though the sunscreen is laden with carcinogens, instead of going outside and laying in the sun, absorbing the sun, just like my dog is doing down here right now. She's laying in the sun. Most animals do that. And if you think about all of our existence, we were outside in the sun, but all of a sudden we're supposed to fear the sun. And it's like, it's such an absurd idea, because it keeps you indoors. It keeps you from going out and seeing the real world. And I think that's extremely important now, to get outside and see the real world, because most of us spend our days inside with our face stuck in our phones or in the screen. So we're looking at artificial light. We're looking at blue light. We're seeing things that are very unnatural. and we're not getting outside and enjoying nature. We're not exposing ourselves to the elements. We're not getting sun on our skin, which means we're not getting vitamin D. There are so many benefits to being outside. And what I've found to be true for myself is that when I'm indoors all the time, my anxiety goes up, my stress goes up. The moment I step outside and immerse myself in the real world, the moment all that starts to fade away. And again, if you think about our entire existence, we would have lived outdoors. Our stress probably wasn't this high. We were probably just going about our days, living life, doing the things that we do, instead of stressing about every little thing and letting all this stuff degrade our minds, essentially. And another great benefit to going outside is the fact that you're just getting up and you're moving around. Because most of us today, myself included, we are much more sedentary than what we probably used to be. I'm sure we were always up moving around, foraging for food, hunting, building stuff. And nowadays we sit at home, we sit on our computer, we sit and watch TV. We get in our car, we're sitting down, we go to work, we're sitting down, we never move around. So for me, when I started exercising, which I've been doing now for about 20 years, my life also changed drastically. It opened my mind up. I gained more mental clarity. And as a matter of fact, I gained more mental fortitude because I learned discipline, I learned commitment, and I learned perseverance. There were times when I started going to the gym where I was extremely weak and I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I shouldn't be in there because I was really tiny, I was really small, I was really weak, and I didn't have much self-confidence. But I found that when I continued to push myself and I overcame those thoughts and those ideas and those self-limiting beliefs, I essentially set myself free. And eventually I went from being the smallest person in the gym to being one of the biggest people in the gym. And that took a long time. It took 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. But through that experience, I gained so much, not just in terms of muscle and body composition and the way I looked and the way I felt, but also in terms of my mind. And what I found is that when your health is in a good place and your body composition improves and you feel more comfortable in your own skin, your confidence goes up by default. And that shines through in pretty much every other aspect throughout your life. And in general, I would say that focusing on health and wellness and putting myself first has afforded me with a lot more mental clarity. It has allowed me to see things more clearly because when you're properly nourished and you're exercising and you're getting outside and you're moving your body and you're getting proper sleep and you're not worried about your health and you're not worried about all these small insignificant stressors in your life, your brain just functions better. And that translates through in every aspect throughout your life. And I would say another thing that's even more important than that is not letting all these outside influences dictate and control the way we live our lives. Because one thing that I've noticed is that when I freed myself from outside perspective and I stopped caring about what other people think, I was able to start living a life that is true to me. And a big part of living a life that is true to me is seeing the truth. It is seeing past all of the agendas and all of the things that we're told in our daily lives that we are supposed to believe are true. Because when you stop allowing these things to influence you, then you can start to think for yourself. You can take the information in, you can dissect it, you can do your own research, and you can form your own conclusions instead of just taking what somebody says at face value. And that is exactly the way I live my life now. And by doing that, I've uncovered a lot of truths. And like I mentioned before, it's a lot of truths that once you see, you simply can't unsee. And a lot of them have completely transformed the way I view the world. And by coming to these realizations, it has given me the permission to live a life that is true to me, to go after the things in life that I want. Because when your mind is clear and you can focus on the things that are important to you, all of a sudden that's the stuff that starts to matter. All these external factors, they start to fade away. Yes, you can still view them. Yes, you can still take them in, but you can look at them objectively. And you don't have to take them at face value. You don't have to necessarily believe everything that you're told, because now you're forming your own conclusions. Now you're coming up with your own ideas and you're living life on your terms. And that is what I believe is more important than all this, is just living life on your terms, living a life that is true to you. And when I started to live my life this way, I began to realize that we've been programmed to believe that things are kind of out of our control. There's nothing we can do to change things. So we have to rely on external factors to solve all of our problems. And that makes us lean on the government. It makes us lean on the people around us. It makes us very codependent. And there's a major problem with that, because the government doesn't have our best interests in mind. They're not really here for the people. And another bad part is that there's not always going to be people around us to rely on. And sometimes the people that are around you can't always be trusted. But what I found is that that idea and that ideology It's an illusion. It's another big lie we've been told, because the fact of the matter is, we don't really have to rely on anybody else but ourselves. And I'm not saying that we need to be isolated and totally alone our entire lives, but the fact of the matter is, we all hold the power for change. Every single one of us as individuals, and especially when we are united. Especially when we're united. And that's a big realization I came to, is that the moment we start quelling division, and the moment we can start coming together over common interests, common goals, and common ideas, that's the moment we gain our strength back. And that is the moment that we can start to take back all that we've lost. That is the moment that we can start to wake up collectively, and we can wake up the entire population and really push for change and really make a difference. And I quickly realized that the moment I stopped feeling helpless, and the moment I stopped looking outside of myself for answers, that was the moment I started coming up with solutions to the problems in my own life. I quickly realized that there were a lot of things in my life that I could solve myself, and I didn't have to rely on anybody else but myself. And that is very empowering. And that has often meant me making myself very uncomfortable and putting myself in very uncomfortable situations. But I've also found that being uncomfortable is the fastest way to grow, because that right there, that is where the hard lessons are learned. That is where you actually gain something, because when we're always comfortable and we're just in a rut, and we just skate through life, we're not learning anything. We're not bettering ourselves. When I started making myself uncomfortable and forcing myself into uncomfortable situations and facing the harsh truth and the harsh reality of things, instead of running away from it and burying my head in the sand because the truth was too hard to face, that was the moment I started to really transform my life. That is the moment I really started to wake up. And a big part of being uncomfortable is realizing that life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. Things aren't always going to work out exactly the way we want them to. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's all about perception. It's all about how we perceive the world around us and perceive the situations that we're given. We can see the bad things as bad and the good things as good, or we can see everything as an opportunity, as a lesson. And when I started thinking about life in that way, that's another big reason why my mind shifted, because I started to see things for what they really are. And instead of playing victim and blaming others, I began to take accountability for my own life. And that's an amazing thing, because it allowed me to realize that my fate is in my hands. If there's something in my life that I don't like, I hold the power to change it. Just like I mentioned before, we all hold the power for change. Every single day that we wake up is a brand new day. It's new opportunity. We can shape that day and shape that opportunity into whatever we want it to be. And I found that that is fundamentally important to realize if you want to open your mind, because when you open your mind to that realization, everything's opportunity. And for me, it all started with the fundamentals, getting back to the basics and focusing on the things in life that actually matter, the things that are truly important. That has allowed me to dig down deep within myself and get back to independent thought, to form my own conclusions, to see through the lies and the illusions, and to see the truth. It has allowed me to forge my own path and to live a life that is true to me and not worry about anything else.